Hey guys, welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews. Today we're going to compare two very popular Ultra Max cushion shoes. It's the Nike Invincible 2 and the Bondi 8. Let's run with it. Before we get started, I do want to say these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, they didn't have a chance to preview this video, and this final synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. We'll start off by comparing the statistics. The Invincible 2 is $180, while the Bondi 8 is $165. So there is a $15 difference between the two, with the Bondi being cheaper. And even though the Invincible does cost more, comes in almost a full ounce less at roughly 9.8 ounces, while the Bondi comes in at roughly 10.8 ounces. So that's a big win for the Invincible because an ounce is a pretty big difference here. As far as stack height goes, it's a relatively similar story between the two. They're within a millimeter of each other. And not a caveat here because stack height is one of those statistics where it can kind of depend how you measure it. Some people exclude the insert in the outsole, and it just depends on who you talk to. Nike doesn't make their stack height information readily available, so it's a little bit harder to track down, while Hoka has it on their spec sheet. So we'll take it with a grain of salt, but what I was able to dig up, the Invincible is going to be 39 in the heel and 30 in the forefoot for a 9mm drop, while the Bondi is going to be about 40 in the heel and 36 in the forefoot for a 4mm drop. So you're looking at a 9mm drop with the Invincible and a 4mm drop with the Bondi. This means you're gonna have a little bit more foam under the forefoot for the Bondi and a little bit less with the Invincible. So relatively same stack height, which I think makes for a good comparison, but they are a completely different experience as we dig into the foams that make up those stack heights. The uppers on these two shoes feel very different. You do get a Flyknit upper on the Invincible 2. It feels like a synthetic material on the outside. It's rather hard, not elastic at all, and features an internal sock liner that runs the full length of the shoe. It's a very thin layer of internal engineered mesh that I thought was fairly comfortable. As far as the fit goes, I think they did open it up here on the second model. I didn't have any issues with the toe box like I do with a lot of other Nike shoes where it becomes a little bit more narrow. Thought it had plenty of room and was very comfortable, fit true to size for me. And I think the reason they went with this more dense, thick, and more strict Flyknit material is they want to keep you connected to the shoe because it is so tall and so soft. So you don't want to have any sliding whatsoever, and that wasn't the case here. But because you do have this very dense, very durable Flyknit material, it's not that breathable, if at all. It's a very locked in experience. So the breathability here isn't that great. For the Bondi, we have a more traditional two-layered engineered mesh. I thought the breathability was pretty much middle of the road. It's not bad, it's not great. It just feels more like a traditional upper here. Fairly comfortable, kept my foot well contained. It is a very narrow experience. I thought the length was true to size, but it's a rather narrow shoe. This worked well for me in my foot shape, but if you do want a little bit more extra wiggle room, I would say maybe go up off size or potentially look at that wide Bondi. The other thing I'll say, it is rather comfortable. I think it works well. It feels, again, like a more traditional fit and feel. The tongues on these shoes are relatively similar. They have a moderate level of padding, with the Bondi maybe having a little bit more extra cushioning in this area. The Bondi's tongue is also partially gusseted with a strip of material only on the medial side. There's no fabric or anything like that on the lateral side, while the Invincible's tongue is fully gusseted and connected to that internal thin liner of engineered mesh. Overall, I thought both tongues performed well, no major issues, and if I had to pick, I thought, again, they both worked well, but I kind of liked the Bondi's tongue slightly more just because it had a little bit extra padding. The heel counters are a similar story to the tongue. They both have a moderate amount of padding, similar experience with the Bondi having just a slight bit more cushion. I thought the uppers here and the lockdown and fit for both worked very well, very comfortable, don't have any major complaints, and I think that's very important when you're dealing with midsoles that are this large and you're this high off the ground. Next, we'll take a look at the midsoles, compare and contrast them because they definitely provide completely different experiences. The Invincible 2 features a full-length ZoomX foam midsole. This is the same kind of foam we see on Nike's top-tier super shoes. It's one of Nike's most energized foams. Now, this midsole is the big reason, if not the sole reason, pun intended, of why the Invincible 2 weighs almost a full ounce less than the Bondi 8. It's going to be softer, lighter, and much bouncier compared to the EVA foam midsole we see here. And in my opinion, I think the Invincible 2 offers a much more fun and unique experience. There's no other Ultramax cushion shoe that has this much level of bounce and squish. This is basically just unencumbered ZoomX foam. There's no plate, no carrier foam. You just get a whole lot of soft, bouncy foam. It's just a lot of fun to run in. And another important thing to note is while both shoes have a rocker geometry, the rocker on the Invincible 2 is going to be much more noticeable. As you get that toe-off sensation, it feels a little bit more aggressive. I think part of the reason is you have that 9mm drop with the Invincible and a 4mm drop with the Bondi. And while the Invincible 2 does have a more energetic midsole, I think the Bondi 8 provides a much more stable experience, which in my opinion, I think makes it a more versatile Ultramax cushion shoe. And even though Hoka did make the Bondi 8 slightly softer than the Bondi 7, it's still that very familiar EVA foam experience, a nice level of cushion and impact protection. I think it works really well here. Now, because it is slightly more dense, it provides an inherently stable base because there's less squish going side to side. The other advantage that the Bondi 8 has is flat-waisted geometry through the midfoot, so you get more surface area on the outsole in the midfoot section compared to the Invincible. So you can see here it narrows out on the Invincible while you have a very wide base on the Bondi. This allows you to have more surface area and a more stable base. And because the Bondi 8 is a much more stable Ultramax cushion shoe, I think it opens itself up to a wider range of activities compared to the Invincible 2. And the big reason for that is if you're on your feet all day, if you're walking all day, I would rather have a more stable, more secure platform, which I think the Bondi 8 provides. Or if you're on a recovery day run or an easy run and you're worried about your form breaking down, I think the Bondi provides a nice level of cushion and impact protection without worrying about a sloppy fit, which I think the ZoomX foam, while it's extremely fun, extremely bouncy, becomes a little bit sloppy and there's a lot of side-to-side motion. Especially if you walk in these shoes, you can just tell the difference of how much more stable the Bondi 8 is versus the Invincible 2. Now, I will say if you're not worried about stability, if you think you have that great ankle strength, your calves are rock solid, then yeah, go for the Invincible. It's a lot more fun. It's much softer, feels a little bit more exciting. But if you want one shoe to kind of do it all on a much more stable platform, I'd probably go with the Bondi 8. Where if you just want one, I'd probably just use this exclusively for my daily training runs because that ZoomX foam is good for one purpose and one purpose only, at least in my mind. As far as the outsoles go, yes, we do get a little bit more surface area with the Bondi because of that midfoot, which is flat-waisted compared to a more traditional setup with the Invincible. The forefoot and heel area are roughly the same. It's about the same kind of surface area. I think the grip is a little bit better on the Bondi on a wider range of surfaces because the lugs are a little bit more versatile, a little bit deeper, while you get a more traditional kind of road race outsole on the Invincible. So where does that leave us? Well, I really can't say if one shoe is better than the other. It really depends on what you're looking to do. However, for me personally, if I want to go on a daily training run, a long run, or just looking for a bouncy, fun shoe to run in, I'm going to use the Invincible 2, mainly because that ZoomX foam midsole is unlike anything else out there. It's a relatively light shoe for how thick it is, and it's a full ounce less than the Bondi 8. This thing is just, I don't know, just fun to run in. It just looks cool, and it's just very bouncy. However, if I want a more versatile daily trainer, if I want a little bit more support, if I'm going walking all day, or if I want something just a little bit more stable, I'm probably going to go with the Bondi 8. It really depends what you're going for. So I think the Nike shoe is definitely more pigeonholed just for running and running only, while the Bondi can do running, walking, daily wear, whatever you want. It really kind of tackles it all, while the Nike shoe is probably a one-purpose shoe, at least for me.